Okay, morning to everybody. I'm standing rather than sitting, which the difference practically is whether I sway side to side or forwards and backwards. I hope you can handle that. And we're doing Maimis, right? It is Thursday morning, Chavov Tammuz. It's exactly 1 week from Gimel Tammuz, which is next Thursday. And with Afsakirayten, the Rebbe spoke in Tashin and Beis on Gimel Shvat. And one of the things that Rebbe spoke about was the idea of Aaron Achicha Yin Neviyecha. That Kayochel, a Chassid, repeats the Arav, repeats the Rebbe's Torah. And he's Mefarsim the Rebbe's Torah. And in teaching the Rebbe's Torah, and being Mefarsim the Rebbe's Torah, he becomes Aaron Achicha Yin Neviyecha. He has the schus, Kayochel, to be Mephis the Torah of the Rebbe the Nasi. And the point of all of this is that Mashiach shall come. We should bring Mashiach, and Mashiach shall come b'teva nidava nigla, u'lamata masarat tvachim u'b'peil mamish. That's really the whole end. And there's no other end, right? The Rebbe called any other end lahev v'larik. So we have the incredible schos of learning the Rebbe's Torah. And as you know, I hope, that every night at 10, including tonight, there will be a shir and biyat tetzaveh at 10 o'clock. I had one Monday, I had one Tuesday, I had one Wednesday last night. We're going to have one tonight at 10 o'clock, also on Zoom. If you belong to my WhatsApp group, I sent out the link to the Zoom. If you don't belong to the WhatsApp group and you want to belong to the WhatsApp group, you can send me a message and I'll put you on the WhatsApp group. You'll get all my new classes and my notices to the extent that I remember to send them. And I'm also going to be on Facebook and on YouTube and on our site. Inside Chassidus Live, you'll have the class, not at 10. So we're learning about Tetzaveh. And by the way, today is Thursday, so after the Shir, after the Maime, we'll segue with Hashem's help into a Fabreng. But in the morning, we're learning a Maime, Vaidaber Elakim Eskol, Volem Ela Lemer Anecha, Deshem Elekecha, Hasher Heit Seisicha, Me'eretz, Mesayim, Beis Avodim, from Tafshin Yud Gimel, which is, how many years ago? 67 years ago. 67 years ago. Yesterday we had the first shir. And of course in yesterday's class I did several things. I tried to introduce the Maimer. In a word, this Maimer is about Mailas Hadibur, the advantage of speech. That even though speech is a doimim, it's a keli for bligavul. And I'm hoping to talk about this more now, today, with Hashem's help. That's the plan at least. And I gave you two introductions connected to the last two Maimorim. That 2 Maimorim ago, the Maimer of Har B'Chukaisei, the Rebbe discussed 3 madregas of Ahava, Re'usa Deliba, the Chilu Rechimu Sichlim, and the Chilu Rechimu Tivim. But the Rebbe explained them in a unique way, or I should say more precisely, I interpreted the Rebbe's words in a unique way. Those ideas are going to come up today in Shir also. And also from the last Maimer, the Maimer B'Shah Shogdimu Yisrael Nasa L'Nishma, which the Rebbe said Leil Shu is Tafshin Yud Gimel. In that Maimer, the Rebbe talked about the idea of Kevesh versus Mailes. A ramp in the beginning, a ramp in the end, and steps in the middle. Steps means Aveda B'Hadroga, step by step, Mamale Kalaman. And the ramp represents the Aveda of Sevav Kalaman, which on the one hand doesn't feel like you're moving any place, and on the other hand, you're moving in an Oifen of Beligavul. And there's a connection between the lowest Aveda, which is a Kfiyah and a Skafia Haidah Chitzonis, and the highest Avodah, which is also a Heidah, which is called Bittel B'Metzias, because the Eibush is Meir Ha'el, which is L'mayla Me'ishtalshlos L'gamne. So this second idea, that there's a connection between the lowest level and the highest level, is repeated in this Maimer. But in this Maimer, you don't have 3 ideas, you have 4 ideas. And the 4 ideas are going to be Deimim Tzemeach Chai Medaber. Deimim Tzemeach Chai Medaber. 4 levels. Let's touch. Doime means literally the mute one, the silent one. It's famous. I heard that Dr. Rabbi Nissen Mendel, Alav Shalom, Zachreinei Livracha, was translating it, yes, the Tanya. So when he translated the word Daimim Tzemaya Chai Medaber, he translated Daimim as inanimate, no animation. And the Rebbe corrected it. And he wrote that you cannot say about a daimim that is inanimate, because Hashem is animating it. Every second, the Eibush is recreating it. So how do you translate daimim if you can't translate as inanimate? I guess you would translate it the world of minerals. But literally, the meaning of the word daimim is the silent one, the one who says nothing. Like it's brought in Chassidus on the Pasuk, Shemesh begivein doim v'yereach be'emek ayolim, that the sun should go silent, mute, stop talking. So Chassidus says, what does the sun and the moon have to do with talking? And Chassidus answers, because the motion of the tzva hashamayim is based on their shir. As they traverse through the sky, they sing. And if they would stop singing, they would stop moving. So Yeshua ben Nun spoke to the Malach, which is the Chayas of the Galgal, which is carrying the Chama, that is carrying the Yereach. And he said, Daimim, Daimi Leime Shira, stop saying Shira, and they stopped moving. And that's the literal translation of the word Daimim, the silent one, the mute one. Ironically, in this Maimer, Daimim is going to be an allusion to letters, which are the vehicle for speech. But the letters by themselves don't say anything. The letters together with the consonants, and when you join them into syllables and into words, that's when you have sounds. But each individual letter, without a nekuda, without a vowel, doesn't say very much. So even though in this maimim, daimim is going to be asias, daimim means the silent one. Then of course there's tzemeach. Tzemeach means the plant. And the Rebbe is going to explain that plants grow, but they don't move. They stay in one place and they grow. And it's going to represent human emotion. The third level is going to be chai. Chai means animals. They not only grow, but they move and they feel. And this is going to be a reference to seichel. And medaber, the human being who speaks, this is going to be a reference to what's l'mayla min ha-seichel. That speech is considered above seichel. That's what's going to be happening today. Okay? So let's get into the Maimer, and we'll see how this ties in to the beginning and the end. The key word to this Maimer, of course, is the word Leimer, and I already learned yesterday with you the beginning and the end. We learned page Kuf Samach Vav, and we learned page Kuf Ayin Hey. And the idea is that through daimim, through speech, through letters, you reach Ein Seif. So starting Pedig Beis, V'ha'inyan hu, and in order to explain the questions of Leimer, and the questions of an Echavaya Lekech, and the question of the double Lashon Hashatesicha Me'eretz Mitzrayim and Mibeis Avad, and the unasked question about V'daber Alekim, which we all learned yesterday. Not only did we learn the questions yesterday, we actually learned the answers yesterday. Says the Rebbe, the Hineksiv. Let's first explain the pasuk. Ve'ehe ye'etzle omun, that the Torah says, "I will be for the Eibishter omun." Omun means a tool for work. Warum Chazal steht in Medrash? The Torah says, "Ani hayisi, I was klayum nasesh Allah Kadosh Baruch Hu, the tool of the vocation of the Eibishter." Oman means a craftsperson. There are many types of craftsperson, many kinds of crafts. Right in the 19th century, they called them guilds, belonging to a field, a distinct field of craftspeople, craftsmanship. And the Torah is the klei ha'omnas. Right, there's the craftsman, and then there's the tools of the craftsman. The Torah is the tool. How is the Torah a tool? So sometimes you have a tool because it's a wrench or it's a screwdriver. And sometimes you have a tool because it's an instruction manual. Torah is not a tool in the sense that it's like a hammer or a screwdriver. Torah is like a tool in the sense that it provides direction. Ma ha'umen, just like a craftsperson, top of page Kuf Samach Zayin now. Diftaroi, so Pinkesois Yeshla, he has papers and ledgers, right? That means blueprints. How he's going to build his house, how he's going to build the rooms, etc. The same is true of the Eibishter.
Anyone there?
Who am I talking to? Oh. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm going to hang this up. I'm sorry. I apologize. That was that was not a malach. That was a ben adam. The same is true of the Eibishter. He looks into the Torah. And he creates the world. Like it says in Zayar. The Eibishter looks into the Torah. And he creates the world. So in short, the Torah is what kind of a tool? It's the kind of tool that provides the directions. The Eibishter is Ein Seif. And the Eibishter created Seichel, right? Chassidus believes that the Eibishter is not Seichel, he's the creator of Seichel. And the Seichel that the Eibishter created, which is called Mala'elam, is called the Torah. And he created the world in the image of that Torah. That means that even though the Eibishter himself is not limited to Seichel, the way he created his world is reasonable. The way the Eibishter created his world is based on the rules of Seichel. Hashem is creating the world through the medium of Torah. If the Eibishter would create the world directly without the medium of Torah, the world would not necessarily reflect order, form, laws, logic. But because the Eibishter is creating the world using the medium of Torah, and Torah is Chochmasa Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the wisdom of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the world reflects a reasonable design, a reasonable order, a reasonable purpose, because even though it's being created by the Eibishter who's Ein Sof, he's creating it through the Emtza'i, through the intermediate of Torah. So the Heilige Rebbe teaches us anything you have in the world, yeshna tchila b'Torah, first in the Torah. Before, when you have it first. In the Torah, Nimshol Gam La'elam comes into the world. In other words, that there's two parallels now. Everything you see in the world was made according to the Eibishter's blueprint. And if it was made according to the Eibishter's blueprint, if you look at the world, you can see the blueprint. If you look at the blueprint, you can see the world. Like the famous story of a couple, a man and a woman. They were not a couple, they were friends from school who were in charge of the Jewish club on a campus in the early 1960s, late 1950s. And they came to see the Rebbe. And one of them said to the Rebbe that the Chassidim say about the Rebbe that the Rebbe knows everything. And he can answer every question, and about medicine, and about business, and about everything. So he asked the Rebbe, first of all, is it true? Second of all, how is it possible? So the Rebbe said, not everything everybody says about me is emes. However, the Rebbe told him that there is a concept that the Torah was the source of the world. Torah is the blueprint of the world. And if people understand the Torah correctly, if people understand the Torah deeply enough, they could see in the Torah everything is happening in the world. Like the famous Mitzvah mit Baal Shem Tov, that people would come to the Baal Shem Tov with questions and open up a Zohar and he would give them answers. Because the world is in the Torah. But not, of course, not everybody can look into the Torah and see how it's reflecting the world. The biggest tzaddikim, you have a question in the world, they find the answer in the Torah because the world comes from the Torah, they're perfect parallel. Okay? Now, of course, in the Torah, everything is oir, is orderly. And in the oilam, everything is through a parsa, it's confused, it's concealed, it's entangled, it's distorted. But nevertheless, the world comes from the Torah. And if someone has the intelligence to disentangle the disorder of the world, they see each point in the world how it's a reflection of that same point in the Torah. And then the Rebbe continues. There's another thing. It says in the Torah, that the Torah is in the person, Adam. Hainu, this means, everything you have in the world, you also have in the person. But there's two Adams. Since the human being is a small world, and the world is a great body, and he's trying to make it in nevuchim. Everything you have in the world, also in the person. In short, what this teaches us, this few lines teach us, that there are three parallel systems. Everything that you and I can see in the world, there is in a person, and before that it is in the Torah. And of course we want to add that there's also something called Atzilus, Adam Ha'elyon. Adam Ha'elyon is also an Adam, and sometimes they tie to Zeis HaTorah Adam, the Torah is Adam Ha'elyon, is Adam of Atzilus. So there's really four parallels, or three. Everything you have in the Torah, you have in the world, and in the person. So the Rebbe will now proceed to explain one idea three times. The idea that he's going to explain is the four levels of Deimim Tzemeh Chai Medaber. First, he's going to explain to us how it is in the world. That's going to be short. Then he's going to explain to us how it is in a person. That's going to be much longer. That's going to be Perek. The second part of Perek Beis, and then Perek Gimel. And then he's going to explain to us how it is in the Torah, which is Perek Daled, and Perek Hey, and Perek Vov. And the point of all of this, is to bring out that the lowest level daimim has a connection to the highest level medaber, and it's going to explain what happened at Matan Torah. Until Matan Torah, they had Torah takeh, but they didn't have the lowest level, and therefore they couldn't actually actualize the highest level. The lowest level is words and speech. The highest level is lamayla min haseichel. And when the Eibusha gave the Torah, and he added the word leimer, and the meaning of the word leimer, or the meaning of the word leimer, is the idea that Torah can come down into daimim, into words. This reveals the beligvul of Torah. This is this maimer. Like yesterday I already learned the beginning and the end, so you're familiar with the Nakuda, but that's what's going to happen. So let's repeat ourselves again. The Rebbe will now repeat one theme 3 times. First in Olam, then in Adam, and then in Torah. What's going to be the Nakuda, the 4 levels of daimim, tzemeach, chayim, medab. I want to see if I can make my fan stop squeaking. So we're going to start number 4. Vehine. Okay, you get it? 3 parallels. Olam, Adam, Torah. And of course, Torah could also mean Kelim of Atzilus. And of course, the higher you go, the more orderly everything is, and the more easy it is to see the Kavanah and the Matorah and so on. But there are still 3 parallels in all aspects: world, person, Torah. Let's start with world. And of course, the next paragraph will talk about Adam. And then on page Kuf Ayin, we'll talk about Torah. Sugim is divided up into 4 groupings. Daimim, the silent one. Semeach, the sprouting one. Chai, the energetic one. Medaba, the speaking one. And he explains Suga Daimim, who the category of Daimim, the category of the silent one, which basically means minerals, rocks of all different types, and irons and metals, and v'chuli. It has no life, like animals, that are vibrant, that are energetic. Doesn't even have a soul that makes it grow. Would affect growth from smaller to bigger. Yesh Beirak, all it possesses, Nefesh HaMahava Eisei, a soul that creates, that animates it. And the meaning, of course, animated is that it should be rather than not be. That it gives it not just existence but also life. And I don't know exactly what this means, that a daimim has life, but it's not for now. Brings down in the name of the Arizal. The sheet of Kabbalah is that everything has life. And if it didn't have life, it wouldn't exist. But here the Rebbe divides it into 2 aspects: creation and life. Even an inanimate, silent being has a category of a soul and a spiritual life. But you have to clear, the pshat is, this soul and spiritual life gives it its existence, or gives it also its form. Giving it its existence, that would be Havoya. Giving it its form, that would be Chayas. And the Rebbe is talking about a daimim, and he's saying both points, that there's a Havoya and there's a Chayas. There's a creation and there's a life, even though it's silent. Or to say it in different words, a rock exists, that's Havoya. And it has a shape, and based on that shape it has a purpose. That's Chayas. But this is me talking out of turn, really. But this is how we understand the meaning of these few lines about daimim. Now I just want to say something based on the words of the Rebbe. If you pay attention to the Rebbe's words, you get a certain impression. At least I get a certain impression. And maybe I get this impression because I have this impression from before. That life is layered. It's like stacked. If you're a daimim, you have a soul that keeps you existent and keeps you alive in the level of silence. If you're a tzemeach, the life that a daimim has, that you exist and that you have form, you also have. Plus you have an additional dimension of life which makes you a tzemeach. And then if you're an animal, you have the level of Havoya and Chayas of a daimim, and Chayas of a tzemeach, and a Chayas of a Chay. And if you're human, you have all of those dimensions of souls that have to do with the levels of daimim, tzemeach, and Chay, plus an additional soul, which makes you a medaber. Which is why, of course, you say that when something dies, you say it loses a higher soul, but it still exists because of a lesser soul. And it comes apart, it loses that lesser soul, but doesn't disappear because it has a lesser soul still, until you get down to the level of the Chayas of a daimim and even the Havoya of a daimim. So that's what daimim means. The first level the Eibusha created is that there are things that are, that show no sign of life, of change and evolution, of growth. Continues the Rebbe, above that there's the kingdom of the plant. That has the possibility of sprouting mikatnas lagados, from small to big. It's not living like an animal lives. What would be the difference? So sprouting from small to big means you move upwards, but you're attached to one spot in the ground, and later on in the Maimah. The Rebbe is going to connect this to the human emotions, because emotions grow, but they don't evolve, they don't change. Above that is the level of animal, of living thing, which is actually alive. And the Rebbe says, which means feel. And I'm going to translate hergish means self-awareness, a cognizance of self, that a plant kvayachol does not possess, and we can even debate this, hergish. Okay, now I want to just tell you that in the Rishonim, on Chumash and Bereishis, when they talk about different levels of life, when it comes to an animal, they use the word nefesh. When it comes to the word plant, they don't want to use the word nefesh, they use the word koyach. Okay, I'm just throwing that in. So for Tzemeach, the Chassidus speaks about a nefesh HaTzemeach, Chassidus even speaks about nefesh HaDememes. But in the Rishonim, they don't speak about a nefesh HaTzemeach, but a koyach HaTzemeach. When it comes to animals, l'havdil people, they speak about nefesh. Continues the Rebbe, v'gam inyan seichel. Included in chai is intelligence. And he brings you a raya, even though l'chayda it's only a rudimentary raya. Kameshikosov, as the pasuk says, Yada Sher Kineo, that animals know who owns them. We find also in Teresh Shabbat Peh, Shul, Spikich Shabachai, said a certain animal, a fox, is considered the shrewdest of all the animals. They have intelligence as far as their things are concerned. Amongst animals, there's different levels. Some animals are rather basic in terms of their intelligence. Some animals are very sophisticated and very deep, and even show empathy and sadness. And of course, if you're familiar with these things, amongst the animals that are considered the most intelligent are the elephants and the dolphins. I think that the reason for the bracha Meshana Abrias on an elephant, people think you make a Meshana Abrias on an elephant because it has a trunk, a nose, and it may be. I believe that the reason you say Meshana Abrias on an elephant is because elephants have an intelligence and a sensitivity it's more sophisticated than the highest primates. It's just incredible to study, to see how elephants treat their family members and their deceased. Which animals relate to their own dead? They meet dead, the bones remains of their deceased sisters and brothers. They show emotion. When they encounter the remains of their relatives. It's a remarkable thing. So animals have a high level of intelligence. Now, on this subject, let me say that in Samachei, in Tofesh Samachei, the Rebbe Rashab talks about 4 types of intelligence. The lowest type of intelligence is mechanical intelligence, what people would like to call in the modern world tool making, which of course you find even by birds. The second level of intelligence would be emotional intelligence, which you'll see by primates, monkeys. They're political and they have alliances. They have the intelligence to develop a complex social order, which simpler animals don't have. And then you have the third level of intelligence is the intelligence of being able to speak. And the highest level of intelligence is abstract intelligence, abstract reason. Animals certainly have the first 2. And that I would say, to be simplistic, that they certainly do not have the last 2. Now, I just want to say that when it says in Chassidus that the third level of intelligence is the intellect associated with speech, that's not the same thing as medaber in our Maimon, because that's intelligence. What our Maimon is going to say about speech is different and ultimately deeper than that idea. And part of the reason I'm sharing this piece of information is because I want to assert this. What the Rebbe is going to say in our Maimon about speech is not the intelligence to be able to speak. It's the oisius. I mentioned it yesterday. I'm going to get back to it later. But be that as it may, the level of chai includes intelligence. In other words, a human being, when he uses his mind, even though human beings are much smarter than animals, and they have what they call a prefrontal lobe, and it allows them to not only to plan and to strategize and to anticipate, but even to engage in theoretical reason. In other words, to use their brains for things which don't touch them directly in their practical lives, simply for the purpose of having knowledge. That's chai shebemedaber. It's the animal within the person. What's the person within the person? So he continues. Well, the highest class is the class of the one who can speak. He listen to this. His biggest mile is lei b'inyan haseichel. It's not as in his intelligence, because shesh negam etzel ba'achayim, even animals have intelligence, like they mentioned before. He has an aspect which is above reason. A human being has a supra-intellectual aspect which an animal doesn't have. Now, I would say, that this last aspect that we say a human being possesses, which is higher than reason, is not just another level. It's a whole nother category, and I'll tell you what the difference is. There's many tools. There are physical tools, there's psychological tools, there's spiritual tools, right? Your brain is a tool, your heart is a tool, your senses are tools. A piece of straw can be a tool, a branch can be a tool, a stone can be a tool. You can make more sophisticated tools. Those are tools. Animals have a lot of tools. They even have the tool of intelligence. But the tool of self-identity, or to say it differently, the tool of having a sense that the reality is not something we only survive in, but the reality is something that we live in and we thrive in, is uniquely human. And this has to do with a core, with an etzem, with a conscience and with a self-awareness that's higher than what I do or what I can acquire and what I can manipulate. It's just a self-identity. And that, I think, is a way of explaining the aspect of L'mayla min haseichel. L'mayla min haseichel, it doesn't only mean the Inam Mesiras Nefesh. L'mayla min haseichel means a worth, a usefulness in existence, which is absolute. In other words, not just another step higher. There's daimim, there's midas, there's seichel, there's l'mayla min haseichel. It's not another step. It's another realm altogether. Human beings' worth is inherent. Right? That's why you say if a human being is very ill, to keep him alive for one more minute, you'll spend millions of dollars. What's the point? Because human life cannot be evaluated. We don't say the same thing about animals. I don't only think we don't say the things about animals because we don't care and because we're insensitive. Because apiteta is not true. Animals have intelligence, but they don't have an essence, a core. And from this core of the human being comes conscience, an innate and inherent sense of right and wrong, and ultimately also the concept of free will. And medaber means this element which is l'mayla min haseichel. This is just an opinion. Okay. Now I want to say something to you. That there's a hemshech from the Rebbe Marash which is called v'kochel, which is mentioned here in the footnotes, which I learned a couple of times. I can't say that I know it, but at least I know that I don't know it. It's in the style of writing of the Rebbe Marash, which means you have to read every word very carefully. And in this very long hemshech that touches on so many different things, because the Rebbe Marash stylists write very concisely, very bekitzer, or relatively bekitzer. One of the questions that he asks is why a human being called a medaber? Why is a human being called one who can speak? Why isn't he called a sichli? Right? There's daimim, tzemeh, chai. And the human being is called a medaber. Now in this maimir, you see why he's called a medaber and not a sichli. Because an animal, chai is the madrega of seichel. But in that maimir, the Rebbe wonders what is the translation of the word medaber, and he gives two definitions. One is the medaber means that he's intelligent. In other words, what he says is reasonable. And the other medaber is that he can speak. In this maimir, the Rebbe is going to link the word medaber to the word midbar, desert. Ashalei Yoshav Adam Sham, you'll see it at the bottom of this page, I believe. Or we're going to see it later on in the maimir. Higher than reason. So medaber in this maimir is going to mean higher than reason. And again, I'm trying to communicate you or to suggest to you that this sort of psychologically is an inyan of conscience, of self-awareness, and purpose and responsibility, and a right and a wrong, which are much deeper than the human mind, much deeper than the mind altogether. Okay, but in this Maimon V'Kocha, he offers two possibilities. Number one, means the power to speak. Number two, the power to reason. In this Maimon, it's higher than that. Although in this Maimon, the idea of words is also considered higher than reason. So we just went through Daimim Tzemeh Chaim Medaber as it is in Olam. And now the Rebbe makes his conclusion. He states a fact Ve'inyan zeh, this notion, that there's mailas ha'odlam ba'bachina shalamayla me'aseichel, that the human being has a quality which is beyond reason. And again, I am saying that beyond reason doesn't just mean it's like another level. It's an infinity. It's an inside a person. There's a conscious piece of God. There's an available piece of Hashem, which is the basis for his self-identity. Just like God has awareness, the human being has awareness, lahavdul. It says the Rebbe Mizgala, then it says in Yiddish, Drik tzich ois, it shows itself, it's manifest, besug ademim dafke, in the inanimate level, in the silent level. In other words, he links the highest level with the lowest level, just like in the previous Maimer, where he only had three things. Mitzvas Hatefilla, or Hoidel Hashem, Meida Ani, davening, and Shmonesrei. And he linked the highest with the lowest. That in order to get to the highest, Bittul b'Metzias, you have to start with the lowest, which is Heidah, Leisala b'Malas al Mizbech Aleshetikal Ervascha. So here he says the same thing, but here you don't have three, you have four. And the Rebbe says, V'yuven zeh, let's move on, in order to explain two things. The four levels of Daimim Tzmei Chaim Daber that we just described that are in the world. And that there's a connection between the lowest and the highest. Specifically, let's discuss Midal Tzugim, the Daimim Tzmei Chaim Daber, the silent one, the growing one, the energetic moving one, and the one that could speak that's higher than reason. Kamei Sheheim Ba'adam Gufa isn't a human being. We're now going to transfer from Olam to Adam, and like I said before, in Mirza Hashem on page Kuf Ayin, in Siv Dalad, we're going to transfer again to Teira. And in each case, we're going to make the same point, that the lowest level and the highest level are connected. Here he's going to explain it more. What is the level of silent? Daimim. But all them who are aces is the concept of letters. That letters have no life. Moreover, you cannot change letters. Letters are what God made them to be. There's different letters, and every category of letters is created by the Eibishter separately. There's no evolution from a higher level of letters to a lower level of letters. One letter never become two. We talk about categories of letters. There's big letters, medium letters, and small letters. From the smaller letters, turn to page Kuf Samachas Asvin. And you're never going to get medium letters, and never going to get larger letters. Let me stop right here. Now I'm going to give you my lecture. Okay, here's the speech. This speech is going to get to the whole Maimer. I'm going to give it to you right here. Okay? I already mentioned to you that the third class of intelligence is the ability to speak. It says in Samachei, the lowest level of intellect is mechanical intelligence, which, as I said to you, means the intelligence of making tools. The second level of intelligence is the emotional intelligence. And the third level of intelligence is the ability to speak. And the highest level of intelligence is abstract reasoning. So, and I said to you that the idea that speech is associated with intelligence is not the same thing as Isis. Let's say the Aleph base, okay? It says in Chumash, Vayipach b'apav nishmas chayim, vayhi ha'adam l'nefesh chaya. Hashem blew into the nostrils of Adam Rishon the soul of life, and man became a living being, Nefesh Chaya. So you have, of course, Targum Onkelos, and then you have Targum Yenesim and Azil. And I believed in the Targum Yenesim, not in the Targum Onkelos. On the words V'hiyadam Nefesh Chaya, he says Leruach Memalala, a spirit that can speak. Let me take a look. I'll be sure. That the human being is distinct. L'ruach mamalo, that he's able to speak. No, it's Targum Onkelos. It's Targum Onkelos. What does it say in Targum Yenison? He says, in Yenisn it says, L'ruach memalala. And in Yerushalmi it says, V'hava adam nefesh techaya. So both in Onkelos and in Yenisn it says, Ruach memalala. That what constitutes a human being, L'ruach malo, that he can speak. But he, the nefesh hayah, person can speak. Now, behavioral biologists who study animals wonder, why can't animals speak? Why can't chimpanzees and orangutans? Biologically, they're very similar to us. Physiologically, they're very similar to us. They're the same vocal cords. They have this similar use, manipulation of their lips and their tongue and their teeth and their palate and what is necessary to speak, and they can't speak. Now, of course, there's all of these efforts to teach them sign language, but it's never speech. And why what they're teaching animals to do? They're teaching them words. They're not teaching them communication. Speech is an extraordinary thing. Chassidus argues that speech is actually incredibly difficult thing to do. Incredibly difficult to do. And the proof is that even the most intelligent animals can't speak. And what makes speech so extraordinary is that we do it effortlessly. A baby is born, they can't speak. Around the age of 2, the child begins to speak. At first there's jibber-jabber, they're just saying nonsense, and then they start imitating our words. And they go through a stage where they just repeat words and repeat words and repeat words, and in a very short time, 3 months, 6 months, if they're healthy, they're speaking. And we don't think twice. We don't think twice about the phenomena of speech. Chassidus would argue that what God has done is has gifted us an infinite koyach. Gifted us. He made it easy for us to do something which really requires a concentration that should be incredible. In other words, speech should be as difficult as the most sophisticated dance or the most sophisticated music. That you have to spend years and years and years and years practicing, and each time you do it, you have to concentrate, and yes, it happens very quickly and effortlessly. He gifted us the power of speech. Hashem imagine every human being being born, being as great a violinist as Yehuda Menuch. That's what speech is. The Eibishter just made it easy. He gave it to us. But because it's easy doesn't mean it's simple. Speech is considered one of the most sophisticated levels, components of intelligence, and of course what it provides is a possibility for communication. These great scientists who've been studying animals. I read this years and years ago that there was a woman who studied chimpanzees, and she would sit and look at them, and she'd known these chimpanzees for years. They'd sit and brood, a bunch of alta monkeys. And she would say to herself, I wonder what they're thinking, and what would happen if they could share their thoughts with each other. What do old people, they sit and talk. What do they discuss? Their life, their past. They don't have that, they can't do it. The closest thing they come to communication is what do they call it? The grooming. It's a form of social bonding. The speech, no one thinks twice about it. But it's according to Hasidus, one of the most difficult things that a human being does, and we do it with no effort. In other words, what we do every time we open up our mouth and speak is create brand new buildings, like creating yesh me'ayin. Every time you open your mouth, you're creating yesh me'ayin. Why? Even if you say the same thing 10 times, when I say the same thing, the same idea, the same feeling, you never say it exactly the same twice. Each time you open up your mouth, the words form in a slightly different way, or you use slightly different words to communicate the same ideas. Chassidus is going to argue that as counterintuitive as this is, the more difficult aspect of that process is not that you're communicating ideas, is that you're using words to communicate. The idea that if you have a brilliant thought in your head, and you can, with very little effort, find the language to communicate to somebody else, and you can say it to 10 people in 10 different ways, each time you're doing that, you're creating a brand new form. But Hashem gifted it to us. Hashem gave it us b'matana. And therefore we don't realize what's really going on, when in reality the power of speech is a power of creation. It's a power of the ability to create. Every time we speak, we create new form. People talk, trillions of words a day. I don't know what the number would be. Every time a person opens his mouth and he speaks, he's creating new form. He's repeating an event or a story or an idea. It's always a little bit different. And all of that happens with so little effort. Right? Look at a person, chas v'shalom, who's had a stroke. You see what it means to put together a sentence. the gift of speech makes us not be aware of how incredible speech is, but speech is considered one of the most difficult things that a human being does. And the proof is animals can't do it. To use the form that the behavioral biologists like to use, animals can create machines, tools. More sophisticated animals can understand emotion. No animal can use words. Even the Coco, the gorilla, that they taught him 400 words, he doesn't really speak. Words are symbols. Every word is an idea. The idea of a sentence, and there's a link between the beginning of the way, I don't know all the English words that they use for a supposition, and all the words that they use about how a sentence is constructed. It's not just a word representing an idea. It's every sentence is a new Metzias. And every paragraph is a new Metzias. Even if you're saying the same thing many times, each time you say it, it's a new building. And like I said, Hashem gifted it to us. He made it so easy that we fail to see how incredible a gift it is, but in reality it's an unbelievable gift from the maybe the ability to speak. And what is the nature of this gift? What did he give us? So bepashtus, it's a soul. Ruach mamalala, it's a soul of speech, as the Targum says. We have a special neshama that can speak. It doesn't say a ruach that's intelligent. It's a ruach that can speak. Intelligence, you can argue, we have in common with animals. There are levels of intelligence which animals do not possess, which we have in common with angels, nifdolim. There's a specific soul which has to do with speech. Every human being has that soul, and that's why human beings can speak, and like I said before, it's an effortless thing. And I want to re-emphasize, speech should really be more difficult than building a building, or even building a car, or maybe even building a computer. And yet we don't even realize it, because it's gifted, it's free. The Eibusher does not make us work for it. He gave it to us b'matana. And that's why we're called medaber, because of this gift. But our Maimon is going to argue that this gift of medaber is not an intellectual gift, it's so much more. It has to do with the infinity of the person, as I'm going to speak momentarily. Okay, so now let's move on. Hashem gave us a gift of speech. And we take the gift of speech for granted because it's given to us in such a way that we're supposed to take it for granted. When I teach my students, I say, what's the difference between walking and dancing, and talking and singing, and writing and drawing? One requires concentration, the other doesn't. Why does walking not require concentration? Why does speech not require concentration? Why does writing not require concentration? So in Chassidus they use the word ratzon, because we do it from the level of our neshama, which is called reflex, instinct, subconscious. But really, God gifted us the ability to walk. God gifted us the ability to talk. God gifted us the ability to write. So we do it without any effort. Even though when you draw, you have to pay such close attention. When you sing, you have to concentrate each time, or an trained ear will see that you're thumping. And when you dance, you have to concentrate. What's the difference? The Eibusher gifted us the power to walk, the power to talk, the power to write for free. Other gifts he didn't give us. So they require effort. You have to every time you sing, you have to concentrate. Every time. It's a matana. So again, we shouldn't forget how great a gift this is, because in our perception it's easy. Now, so what is the gift? So bepashtas, the gift is a nefesh, is in the soul, is in the shon. But our Maimon is going to make a different argument. And by the way, it's not unique to our Maimon. The emes is it can be traced back to Geras HaKedesh Simonei and Tanya. Vayaz David Shem, where the Alter Rebbe has his treatise on speech. There's so many kashas in the Vayaz David Shem. There's a lot of things that are not understood and that are incomplete. And then of course you have in Ranat, the famous Hemshech Ranat, the Rebbe Rashab dedicates a number of Maimorim, or a number of pages to the union of Keach HaDibur. Ubekama Mekemes. So I told you this yesterday already, that there's three components to speech basically. Number one, the idea. Number two, the sounds, the letters. And number three, the ability to form those letters and sounds into words and sentences and paragraphs and so on. So logically, the most sophisticated part of speech is what I'm saying, the idea. The second most sophisticated part of speech is the ability to form words and sentences to communicate the idea. And the least sophisticated part of speech is the letters themselves, the sounds. But Chassidus argues that it's a chesed ha'misapech, that's the way we see it. But in reality, it's the opposite. the highest inyan in speech is the letters and the words themselves. The second inyan of speech is the ability to take those words and sounds and inform them in 1,001 different ways to constantly create new words, new form, and so on. And the lowest aspect of speech is that those words and those forms can carry ideas or feelings or senses and so on. So the power of speech is not only the ability to communicate ideas. It's not even only the ability to reconstruct sounds into words and words into sentences and sentences into paragraphs and so forth. It's the oisius themselves. It's the letters themselves. And Chassidus makes an argument. I think the Alter Rebbe is the source of it, which is a radical argument. It's a radical argument that's very difficult to comprehend, but it's also very important to comprehend. And this is what it is. The quote is, the sentence, the statement that has to be made at this point is, quote, "Hanefesh meleya oisius." The soul is full of letters, not words. The soul is full of letters. What does this mean? It means this. Let's say, for the sake of argument, and it's a pretty good argument, that the soul is an infinity, right? Or the soul has infinite light. That means from a soul you can have theoretically infinite ideas, infinite feelings, infinite number of sensory experiences, or sensory perceptions. Yeah? But if you went into the soul, would you see infinite ideas? Would you see infinite feelings? Would you see infinite senses? And of course the answer is no, you would see one light. The way Chassidus explains it is every idea is called a light, or eira seichel. And when you have one idea, there's a light of seichel in this idea. You have a second idea, there's a light of seichel in the second idea. And you have a third idea, there's a light of seichel in the third idea, and so on. But when you go into the nefesh, those lights join, and they become one greater light. It's like you have 10 matches. Each match has a flame. If you put the 10 flames together, you still have 10 matches, but you now have one greater flame. The phenomena of oyer, of light or life, that emerges from nefesh and diversifies and divides, in nefesh, it's a unified oneness. And of course, this is how it is, Lamailo. There's only one Ein Sof, one oyer, Mein Amoyer. From one that Ein Sof comes all different kinds of lights, the light of Chochmah, the light of Bina, the light of Chesed, the light of Gevura. And then, of course, within Chochmah, there's innumerable lights of distinct Chochmas and innumerable lights of distinct Binas, innumerable lights of distinct Chesed, innumerable light or life of distinct Gevura, and so forth. But in the Nefesh, they're one. They're one. So the soul and godliness is infinite and plain, or one. Says the Alter Rebbe, says Chassidus, there's another side to this. And the other side to this is letters or words, or to be more familiar, Kalim. Where do Kalim come from? Where do Oisius come from? They come directly from Atzmos. Every sound, every letter that we say or think or feel or intellectualize or will or delight exists in the Etzem HaNefesh. HaNefesh Meleya Oisius. The soul is packed with letters. How many letters are there in the soul? There's an infinite number of letters. Every word you're ever going to say or think or feel or intuit or will or desire or delight exists in the nefesh. Every keli, chochma, bina, das, chesed, word, tefes exists in atzmos, mamish. But there's a difference. And you know what the difference is? When you have many little lights, like many little flames attached to matches, and you join them together, they become one greater light. When you have many letters, if you go back to the Etzem HaNefesh, they're not one. They're an infinite number of individual letters. They never become one. They may be so inconspicuous, they may be so unactualized that they don't exist. You're not aware of them. But their existence has many details. I saw in Samachet, the only place I saw it in Shavuos, that in Etzem HaNefesh, Eisius is like Klal Prat, not like Hiyuli and Gilui. In other words, to use classic language, Chassidus talks about Eir and Keli, right? Alternatively called Oisius and Oir. The way Oir works, there's a lot of levels of Oir, a lot of different types of Oir, and so on and so forth. But Oir comes from a oneness, and when it joins, it becomes a oneness again. Kalim were never one, and they never become one, like hot coals. If you pile 10 hot coals together, they remain 10. You blow on them, flame comes out of those 10 hot coals. The flame is one, the coals remain distinct. And this goes back till Atzmus. Till Atzmus. The Eibishter in his etzem, right? We call it in the fancy world of Chassidus, Yecholte Lahor and Yecholte Shalei Lahor. Yecholte Lahor is the source of Oyer, or Seichel, or Shefa. Yecholte Shalei Lahor is the source of Oisies. And then, of course, lower than Yecheles, you have Koyach HaBeli Gavul, which is the source of Oyer, Koyach HaGavul, which is the source of Asius and Kalim. And on every level, what I just said is constant. A lower Oyer joins with a higher Oyer, it becomes one. Various Oyers, various theories, various ideas or feelings or sensory experiences. If you go deep enough and high enough in the Nefesh, they become one greater experience, one greater idea, and ultimately one greater light. Words are not that way. In other words, when you say that the Eibush is infinite, or when you say that the Neshama is infinite, there's two aspects of that infinite. One is Antu Chad V'lei B'chushban, like Tishtakach El Nahoyre de B'tzina Chada, one light, and the other is infinite stones, Avonim. That's what's called in Sefer Yetzirah. Infinite letters. And the infinite letters never fuse. Because, as the Rebbe says in the Maimed, letters don't grow, letters don't change, and letters don't have babies. Every time you or I open up our mouth and say a word is made up of a number of sounds, a number of letters. Those letters have evolved from the very Etzem HaNefesh, and in Etzem HaNefesh they were individual. They may not have been felt as a distinct Metzias, but they're individual till Etzem HaNefesh. In other words, to speak in the language of Eid and Keli, Oid and Etzem HaNefesh is Oid, is Echad, and Keli and Etzem HaNefesh is Ribui. Or to give you just a physics, right? In physics they speak about the relativism between matter and energy. Right? Energy is one. Matter is made up of many, many pieces. E equals mc squared means energy is matter, matter is energy. Chassidus wouldn't agree. Chassidus would say that energy or life, or light is higher than energy. In Hebrew, energy is koyach. And life is chayes. And light is oir. Oir chayes v'koyach. It's a sugya in Chassidus. You have more energy, they become a one greater force. Particles, choymer, is always distinctive. And it's distinctive biz atzmos. Now, how do you reconcile what I'm saying in Chassidus to what says in physics? Is not a discussion for now. I probably shouldn't have brought it up. But that's the Metzias. Chassidus does not see the idea that an idea produces its own words. No such thing. Words come all the way from Etzem. All the way from Etzem. Now, there's different kinds of words. There's words that communicate ideas. There's words that communicate feelings. There's words that communicate sensory experiences, what you can see and hear and smell and taste and touch. And of course, seeing doesn't only mean seeing things, but seeing beauty, art. Hearing things does not only mean words, it means music, art. And the same is true to each one of the five senses, including speech, is speaking words, and then they're speaking poetry and so forth. Chassidus is going to argue that in your etzem, there are separate oisias for seichel, separate oisias for mides, separate oisias for chushim, separate oisias for ratzon, separate oisias for tainuk. In other words, not only are there an infinite number of individual letters in etzem HaNefesh, that even if the total battle b'mitzias and you can't experience them, remain klal uprat. They're individual oisias. There's an infinite number of levels of oisias. So, this is a gewaltige derher. When you speak about the idea that the Eibishter gave human beings the Kayach Adiba, there's two parts at least. There's the neshama of speech, l'ruach mamalolo, and then there's the letters, the sounds that are planted in Etzem HaNefesh Mamish, and in Etzem HaNefesh they exist as individual oisias to the degree of infinity, because they don't separate, they don't grow, they don't evolve, they're like stones, they don't change at all. So speech, the gift of speech that the Eibishter gave human beings involves at least two parts, and possibly more. One is the spirit of being able to speak, or to use the form that I said before, ke'ech hatziruf, to take these letters and put them together to create words and sentences and so on. And the other is the Asias themselves. So if I were to ask you, why can't animals speak? So the simple answer to the question is, because they don't have a nefesh ha'medaberes. They were not given the ruach mamalala. Says Rambam, that's not the real reason. That may be true, but that's not the real reason. Hashem didn't give them words. Hashem did not give them words, letters, oisius. A human being has planted in his etzem infinite oisius. Who put them there? God. He didn't give an animal that ability. Which means if you could do a neshama transplant and give an animal the ability to have the ruach mamala, he still would not be able to speak. He has the intellectual koyach atziruf. He doesn't have the words. Now, no one thinks twice about making sounds. Animals make sounds. Birds make sounds. Fish even make sounds. Whales make sounds. Whales are not fish. Whatever the case is, we're going to argue about that at a different time. But the letters, which are going to join together to create words, which are going to join together to create sentences, and so forth, this ability, Hashem didn't give animals. So the human being has two sources, two tools that combine for him to be able to speak. The neshama that allows him to speak, and I perhaps we could say that from this neshama is the ability to organize letters into words and to repeat. You say Baruch 5 times, each time it sounds the same. Baruch, 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 Baruch. 5 times, you're joining a Beis and a Reish and a Chof and the Kometz and the Shuduk together. 5 times in a row, because your seichel, your intelligence can join those sounds and these vowels consistently, repeatedly in the same way. And then there's the ACS themselves. And Chassidus says the real issue of speech is not the intelligence of the ideas that you share. The real issue of speech is not even the Keach HaTzidah, the soul that allows you to formulate words. It's the words themselves. And the words exist in Etzem HaNefesh. And the same model that I'm describing by Oisius is true by Kalim. Kalim and Moshe Shanatzmos, just like Oisius and Moshe Shanatzmos. Now, let me move on. If you've studied Chassidus, you've come across this phrase. May his avus with an ayin, ha'oyer nishavu ha'kelim. As the light becomes lower and denser, the kelim, the vessels or the words or the letters emerge. When you have a very concentrated light, there's very little form. And as the light becomes diminished, the form emerges more. And the impression that you get is that form, that letters form from the light itself. Very much like when you slow down energy, it becomes matter. Or you speed up energy, it becomes matter. But that's the way, it's not the truth. Kalim do not come from Oyer. Oisias do not come from Seichel. Kalim come from Atzmos Mamish. The Shoresh of Kalim is higher than Oyer. Oyer is Misyachas to Moyer and Kalim is Misyachas to Atzmos. Ideas are Misyachas to the life of your Nefesh. The words are Misyachas to your Etzem HaNefesh. The way the Kalim are delivered. The way the Kalim become observed. The way the Kalim individuate, the way the Kalim separate, is through the diminution of light. But light is only a carrier. Ein Sof carries Kalim, doesn't create them. Kalim has its own Shoresh and Atzmos, and the Shoresh is even higher than it. Letters, words, are Mushish and Etzem HaNefesh. Again, this is a quote from the Malton Rebbe, and I don't know if this is in Kisvei Arizal, because every time Chassidus quotes it, the source is Tanya, Yeres HaKedesh, Siman Hey, Vayaz David Shem. I've never seen in my Chassidus quote an earlier source for that. The Alter Rebbe made a statement, a Nefesh Malei Oisius. And it's a revolution in how we understand the whole Kalim system. If there's Chaymer and Tzura, there's matter and form. The form system has to do with Oyer and Seichel and Chayes. And this is discussed a lot in Kabbalah. The Kalim system and the Oisius system, and this Igeres HaKedesh, Alter Rebbe says you should know Chaymer has its own Shoresh and Atzmos. It's carried by Oyer, it's delivered by Oyer, but it's not created by Oyer. Ideas do not create words. The Etzem HaNefesh does. The ideas carry them. When I have an idea and I want to say it, the words come from the Neshama. There's an expression from the Rebbe Marash, which is printed in the back of the Samach Vav. In the newer Samach Vav, that's no longer in the back of the book. It's the separate Sefer that they made. Sefer HaMaimorim Tofreish Samach Vav, Tofreish Samach Zayin. The Rebbe Marash said these words. Reden darf man reden leiten Ede. You speak to your community. When Atzmos Hus geht zu Werte, the Eibishter gives you the words. Reden darf man reden leiten Ede. You speak to the community. The Eibishter gives you words. And of course, the simple meaning of that is, you plan what you're going to say. How it comes out is almost like magic. It's really not planned. But this is true narrowly, as a Rebbe means it. But it's true in the ultimate sense as well. We do not think about speaking. It just happens. We don't even think about thinking. You're thinking an idea. How much attention are you paying to the fact that you're thinking? It's passive. It's a gift. It's for free. And Chassidus argues this gift is for free. You know why it's a gift? Because it's impossible to create. An idea you can create, a feeling you can create, communication you can't create. God gifted it to us. That's why animals can't speak. A, they don't have a ruach mamala. And B, if they had a ruach mamala, their nefesh does not have ois. Hashem did not put word in their etzem. Now this is a mystical idea. It's not a philosophical idea. In other words, you can't prove it. But the real reason animals can't speak is natural because they don't have the soul that allows them to formulate forms of speech. The Eibusha did not put words into their etzem. Now this is a strange concept. Because what's a letter? What's a letter? It's like the Sefer Yetzirah calls letters stones, rocks. Meaningless forms. You put rocks together, then you have something. Every one of those rocks, every one of those letters exists in Etzem HaNefesh. And it's called in this Maimed Doimim. What's the silence in the person? That deep, deep, deep. You can't even call it the subconscious. And the Etzem of the Neshama, and the so-called essence of the soul, whatever the word essence means, Hashem planted infinite letters of different types. These letters do not divide, these letters do not multiply, these letters do not grow, these letters do not shrink. What God made them to be is what they're going to be forever. And as we communicate through ideas, through feelings, through sensual experiences, in thought or in speech or in deed, those letters emerge from the neshama, and they're so easily available to us, we don't think twice about them. And Chassidus is saying that the oisies themselves, the letters themselves, are a more meaningful gift from the Eibishter than the Keach HaTziruf. In other words, the aspect of speech, which is the hardest for a human being, for a creation to get by himself, is the letters. If Hashem didn't give you letters, you can't create them yourself. Impossible. And He put them in Etzem HaNefesh, and it's available for free. Think an idea, the words will come. And when you say words, there's two aspects to words. There's the forming of letters into syllables and into words and into sentences and so forth. And then there's the Aesius themselves, the Doimim. The argument of this Maimer is Keach HaTziruf comes from Chochmah, which is Chaya. Chochmah to Chaya Balea. The Aesius themselves come from Kadmas HaSeichel, come from Etzem HaNefesh. And that's Doimim. So you see, I've already given you sufficient basis for seeing this argument that there's a link between the lowest Doimim and the highest Medaber. Because what is Doimim? Letters. What are letters? They're nothing. They're things, mediums that you use to create words, sentences, paragraphs, right? A wall, a building, a city, a country. The argument is that the aspect that we take the most for granted is the greatest miracle that's just been given to us for free, so we don't acknowledge it, and that's the atheists themselves. Okay, so let's do this. I just gave you a long speech, huh? I was actually not bad, Frank. Okay, darf nicht stinken, huh? Let's read it again. Bottom of Kuf Samach Zayin. So, Gaddaim beyond the Moasis, the category of the silent one of the human being is letters. They're not alive. They're not alive. Life is spiritual. Life has to do with the oir and chayis half of the equation, not the keli and oasis half of the equation. Moreover, there's no change. Every letter and sound that you produce, Hashem put into your etzem on the highest levels, higher than Tainug and higher than Ratzon and higher than Chochmah and higher than Bina, and it trickles out of there without any effort. One letter never becomes two, till etzem HaNefesh. There's different types of letters. There's big letters, medium letters, and small letters, which is Kabbalistically Bina, Zah, and Malchus. And of course in the Sefer Torah there's big ones, and then most of the letters are in between, and then there's some small ones. These letters each come from Atzmos. Small letters never become medium or large, and large letters never become medium or small. That's Doimim. It's the level of reality that we don't attribute any significance to, that only God could create. If He didn't make them, there's no way we could. And He gifted them to us. It's like a rock on the sidewalk. What would happen if there were no rocks? There'd be no sidewalks, there'd be no earth. But who thinks about rocks? We think about what you can do with rocks. What you can build from rocks. But a rock, Says Chassidus, this rock, Atzmas created. And you can't make babies. They don't have babies. Every rock, every pebble, every piece of matter is created by the Eibishter distinctly, and in Atzmas it exists separately. Separate in the fact that there's many of its own type, and separate that there's many different types, and they're not begot. They don't have babies at all. And this is the level of the human being called the plant. Says the Halakha Rebbe Shwinyan Amidas, this has to do with human emotions, that emotions change. As we grow up, we become more sophisticated in our feelings, right? We become more refined in our feelings. And we also become more deep in our feelings, right? Deep means loyal. You're involved in something, it's forever. So there's growth on an emotional level. Of that is the level of the animal within the human being. That's intelligence. Like it says in the Pasuk, Chai has to do with Chochmah, right? Now, a lot of places, Techaya would be Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, Yechida, which is higher than Neshama, and Neshama would be Bina. Here, Chaya means Pashat, the animal. V'hainu, this means as follows. And the Rebbe explains the difference between human emotions and human intelligence. She'inyan Hamides, the idea of human emotions, Av Shem Hergish, they're experienced, they're felt, and they're profound, they're powerful. Mikol Mokam Ein Ze Inyan Shel Chayis, they're not living. What does living mean? They're not changing. They're growing, but they're not changing. Why is this? Emotions do not pervade a person completely. Yiddish. The feeling doesn't change you. It expresses you, but it doesn't change you. Only human intelligence. Whereas, in as much as Chochmah is the first of the inner faculties, it pervades a person altogether. That's when human intelligence, there's life, translates the Rebbe, Frischkeit and Lebendigkeit, freshness and vibrancy, which means newness. Chai means to renew yourself. Intellect, you have new information, but the information does not remain theoretical information. It becomes transformative information. Emotions don't have that power. And of course, the way the human experience lives his life is these new ideas that a human being gets will create new emotions. But the emotions by themselves have no capacity for begetting, for newness. Only the intelligence does. And then Rebbe concludes, the highest is the ability to speak in the human being. Now, the lowest level is Doimim, which is Aisius. The highest level is Medaber. What's Medaber? Higher than Seichel. That's it. And of course, included in Medaber, higher than Seichel, is the power to speak. Now, I told you before that it says in Samachei that Dibur is a level in Seichel. You know why Dibur is a level in Seichel? Because over there you're talking about Kerech Hatzirif, to form letters into words. But the letters themselves, and to bring those letters forward and to actually speak, comes from Daimim and it comes down in Medaber. It says the Rebbe Shu Etzem HaNefesh Alamalam Yaseichel goes into Nefesh and the level of Etzem, which I like to translate, that exists in relationship with itself, which is above intelligence. The Indian Zen, this idea Mizgala Beisis Hadibah comes down in words. In other words, there's a link between the Etzem of the Neshama, the Bligvul of the Nefesh, and the Daimim. The highest level and the lowest level. And now you understand why. The level of letters, things, stuff, chaymen, matter, Caleb, Oisius, if Hashem doesn't put them there, they're not there. And when He puts them there, they're there individually. There's no such thing as from few becomes more. Every single letter we'll ever think, say, or do is in the Etzem HaNefesh. And it comes out in ideas, in the spoken words. There's a connection between Medaber. How did I explain to you Medaber before? As conscience, right? I explained to you Medaber before as conscience, as a self-awareness, as being like God in this world. I see myself not just as a survivor or a user of the world, but as a steward of the world. I have a responsibility to myself and others. I have a fundamental sense of importance and worth. That's your etzem. And in that level, speech comes out. There's a connection between the doimim and the medaber. These ideas show themselves in feelings. And the advantage of the human being, which is above one's intelligence, comes out in letters and words. Shahare emphasis. Now here the Rebbe is going to say in a few lines what I told you in half an hour. Ha'oisies hadibur boy miyatzam hanefesh. The letters of speech, and the same is true with letters of thought, and letters of feeling, letters of intelligence, and letters of will, letters of light. This shit in not come from the Yetzam HaNeshama. Shazeh, when you're nefesh malaya aces, that's the meaning of the statement. The soul is filled with letters. Look at footnote 22. He brings Lukut Torah, and the Friedrich Rebbe's Maimer, Seif Mamorim, Shom Ahmed 110. This is Tzadik Vov. And then it says the Shom Nisman. I'm going to look. Okay, it'll take me a second. I'm going to look. Chakukta. I'm sorry, but I think it's worth it. Hanefesh Malaya Oisius. 220, I'm reading. Muva Bakama Makemis Bedach B'Shem Sefer Yetzirah. It's quoted in Chassidus in the name of the Sefer Yetzirah. And he's mitzayin to the upper bottom of the Alter Rebbe and the Mittler. Then it says, Re'ei Sefer Yetzirah Shehuva L'kam B'Pnim. Look up the Sefer Yetzirah. Ubakama Makemis, as well as in other places in Chassidus, as brought B'Shem Kisvei Arizal. Then he brings my money from the Alter Rebbe. And he says, Re'ei Eitz Chaim. And then he's mitzayin to look at the Torah in other places. Now, I don't have time to look these up. But this must be a order from the Rebbe. Has to be. Maybe not. Okay, maybe it's talking here the first time. This looks to me like a footnote of the Rebbe's. It doesn't look like Stam Azeh. I'm going to look and say if you see it. Perek Beis Mishnah Gimel. Look it up. This is one of the advantages of teaching from home. I can interrupt in the middle of the class and look it up. For those who do not know, the Sefer Yetzirah is written like Mishnayos. Okay, I'm reading it. Eser Mishtaya Mesias, Yeseid, Chakukes, Bekel, Chatsuves, Beruach, Kavues, Bepeh, Bechamisha Mekemes, Acheh, Bum, Fkich, Talant, and Zas Sharatz. There's 5, right? So I'll read it again. Eser Mishtaya Mesias, 22 letters. Yeseid are the foundation, that are Chakukes that are carved Bekel into sound. Chatsuves beruach, they're hewn, they're carved out of spirit. Kavuas beped, they're fixed in the mouth. B'chamisha mekemis, in the 5 parts of the mouth. Acheh, boom, fgich, daltant, and zas sharatz. Now you tell me where it says in this Mishnah, Hanefesh Malayasius. Alter Rebbe says it, right? And Chassidus says it says in Sefer Yetzirah, but it doesn't. It doesn't say in Sefer Yetzirah. And you know what? Let's look at Eitz Chaim. Well, Eitz Chaim Shad Hey Perek Gimel. Here I have an Eitz Chaim. Huh? There's an Eitz Chaim. I'm wasting your time, of course. Shad Hey Shad Tanteh Perek Gimel. Now the Eitz Chaim is a little bit more difficult. It's almost word for word from the Sefer Yetzirah. Kol ha'elam es nivru aydechoves aslan shebamalchus asher behen neitzra. V'yesh behen hei eses man sapach shen hei gevuris. Okay? U'kinegim shem mitzoy sapeh ben goren rechech v'chulu. U'kamei shem hei eses man sapach. And they're called the Asias Tumis. והעניין כי הן נקודס יש בפיתוחי חסם, כי הם נגד הם מצווי ספר, שהם פיתוחים ונפתחים. Here's the bottom line. This expression, a nefesh malei atheist, does not say, not in Sefer Yetzirah, and not in Eitz Chaim, it's Alter Rebbe's. And Alter Rebbe, I guess, he's revealing Pshat in this Mishnah in Sefer Yetzirah and this Maimed of Darizal and Eitz Chaim. But he's revealing Pshat in such a way that only the Alter Rebbe could say it, because he's creating. And what he's creating is this principle that the letters are Musha Shanatzmos Mamish, Nefesh Malay Oasis. This principle that I told you before, that in the Etzem Mamish, there is a Pshitas Obeligavol, which has to do with Eiran Chayas and Keach, and there's or Eiran Chayas at least, and then there is a Riboy Beligavol in the state of his Batlos, which has to do with Asias and Kalim, and that's what he's talking about here. I'll read it again. Shaharei. Asis, the letters of speech come from the Etzem and Neshama Shehu, and Nefesh Malay Asis, which is a quote from the Alter Rebbe. And even though we blame it on the Arizal and blame it on the Sefer Yetzirah, which is written by Avraham Avinu or Rabbi Kiva or both, it's the Alter Rebbe. Alter Rebbe says it. Ella, should be some benefesh. If you could meet the Asis and the Nefesh, ein Asis b'metzias. They have no identity. They have no form. Like I told you, there it says in Shavuos Samachei that they're klal and prat, as opposed to Yuli and Gili, or Etzem and Espashtus, Moed and Eir, Helam and Gili. It's klal and prat, but it's klal and such a madrega bilti metzias that is the bilti metzias of the Etzem and Nefesh mameh. The reason it's klal and prat is because it's not from small becoming big, from big becoming small. They're distinct. Then they emerge and they develop a form. But the pshat, they emerge and develop a form. Not that they become something different, they become evident as something different. This infinite atheist, bepirut, individual. And when you say that an animal cannot speak, it's not only because they don't have a ruach mamalala, it's that the Eibush should not put etzem nefesh, atheist in etzem nefesh. Like it says in Tanya the Shini, the various different sounds that we make with our lips. This is against the Kedah Siman Hey, which is what the Alter Rebbe says, this famous quote on Nefesh Malaya Asias. You have Ois Beis and Vav and Mem and Pei all come from the lips. Boomf. And then, of course, Gich, Gimel, Yud, Chof, and Kuf come from the palate. And Aleph, Ches, Hey, and A come from the throat, and so on. And it's beyond the mind altogether. Once the sounds emerge to be mitzaref, the words, the sounds, that has to do with seichel. The idea is that the words are going to carry certain has to do with seichel. But the letters themselves are mekadmos ha-seichel. Elami seichel ha-nelam. V'kadmos ha-seichel. That has to do with nefesh ha-medaberes. And ultimately it's etzem and neshama mamash and nefesh. You know why human being can speak? And nefesh, could God put words into our etzem? And if he wouldn't put the words there, he could be the most intelligent person with the most imaginative keach hatzir, and a sound wouldn't come out. Not in machshove, not in dibur, not in maisa. Now, I was planning to teach Gimel, but frankly, I'm exhausted. The shir is over an hour, and I'm just going to say, Baruch Hashem, I'm going to leave this. Now, I'm not sure about tomorrow morning, because we're going away for Shabbos. I'm not more sure about tomorrow morning, and Sunday morning, there's not going to be a shir. Sunday, there's no shir, bepashtus. I'll have to see how I'll play it. I'm going to try and give a shir tomorrow. In a fantasy world, maybe I'll give another shir today, but probably not going to happen. But we'll get to it. Mitzvah Hashem. I'm going away for Shabbos, so for sure Sunday I'm off. I'm having a upshernis for my grandson, Baichkul Menachem Mendel Alevi, Ben Chayim Mushka. You can all say L'chaim for him and for us, and participate in the Simcha Merachik. On Omen Shem, it should be a big chassid, a big Yiddish Maim, and a big Lamden, Gesundheit and Freiligkeit. And by everybody's Simcha Mitzvah Hashem. So this afternoon there's a Maimer class at 10. Aviyata Tetzavadit, we're bringing at 11. Again, tomorrow morning is up in the air. I can't promise. I'm probably not going to advertise. Sunday for sure there's no classes. But there's a shir tonight, and Sunday night I'm going to try. I'm not going to promise. We'll see. Chazak.